talk all things media, and the man we go to each and every time on TheInformer is our media expert, long-time media professional. His name is Steve Carey. Welcome.
Good morning, George.
They say perception is everything.
It is. Perception is everything.
Let's talk about perception and what sort of challenges it presents for modern media and for the modern community.
Well, the reason we want to talk about perception today particularly is whenever people watch this program, while we're speaking right at this moment, the first plane load of people have arrived back in Victoria from an international destination, Colombia. And what you're seeing is, in a perceptional sense, there's the full PPE. There are people being herded onto buses. There are witches' hats outside the accommodation that they're going to. There are police escorts. Now, do we need all of those things to ensure that these people are COVID-free and that won't get into the community? Probably not. It's probably a bit of overkill. But what
media relations.
But what it does, exactly, what it does do in a perceptional sense is it says to everybody, hey, we've had 2 runs at it. This is the 3rd one. We're going to be okay.
And so, more importantly, we've learned our lesson.
We've learned our lesson, correct. We've listened. And well, boy, we hope they've listened. Wow. So what the media is looking for in an imagery sense is those iconic shots, people onto the bus, full PPE, police, security. It screams, we've got this. It screams, we've got this under control this time. What we need to remember is that this is also a political issue. From a government point of view, people need to be reassured that everything's okay.
Correct.
Listening to talk back on the way here today, it split the community again, particularly in Victoria.
Oh, yes.
It's totally split the community.
Steve, we've scared people. The governments have scared people for the better part of the last year and a half.
Well, the governments haven't scared people. The way that it's been handled has scared people.
Okay.
So with whatever side of the political spectrum you're on,
yeah.
you can argue both ways. But what scared people is the fact that COVID has got out.
Yep.
And when it gets out, premiers of every state have this tendency to go bang, down come the borders.
Right.
And we've only seen a couple of days ago that now with the New Zealand bubble, the New Zealand Prime Minister Ardern is also saying that, hey, I'll decide if there is a problem. I'll now decide whether you're part of the bubble or not.
And she's even decided to adopt the Victorian model of traffic lights.
Traffic lights.
So it's green, amber, and
red. Red, no go.
No-go zone.
So in a perceptional sense, just to bring it back, in a perceptional sense, what we're seeing today is, and what we'll see in the news tonight, the radio's already doing it, paper online is doing it, and I can guarantee, bet your bottom dollar, the lead item tonight on every single news outlet in Victoria will be, here's the imagery of these people coming off and going into quarantine. Is it going to work? Is it enough? Are we safe? So in a perceptional sense, what we want is, as a community, we want to be reassured, because there are a lot of people still out there very, very nervous about the fact that we're taking international arrivals. I have a view on that, which I'll get to in a minute, but we want to be reassured. Now, some people are going to say it's overkill. That's okay, that's fine in a perceptional sense. But there'll be that strong imagery tonight on every news bulletin that we've got this. That this time, 3rd time lucky, we've got this.
This is evidence yet again of that wonderful line, it's so key to make a great first impression.
Yes.
Because you don't get a second chance to
Correct.
do it. So they've got a chance to get it right. And we've heard perception now being spoken of more and more, and especially that we've created a whole new bit of terminology. It's called poor optics or bad optics.
Yeah.
Now, 30, 40 years ago, I had never heard the expression. It's everywhere. It's trotted out. Oh, the optics were poor. My goodness gracious me, what was happening here? So we go back. Okay, international visitors, international travellers, international tourists, are we going to let them back in? Well, there are 30,000, I believe, or plus 35,000 Australians who've been wanting to come back for months, and for one reason or another, and much of it to do with the inability to grab a seat. They're happy to sell them a first class. Happy to sell them a first class seat, but they won't sell them.
That's exactly what I wanted to talk about too.
Let's touch on that then.
Well, my view strongly is they should be allowed to come back.
Yeah.
I mean, for heaven's sake, they're Australians. We're supposed to be all Australians, right?
Oh, don't go there.
No matter where you're from or who you are or what you are, right? Yeah. I mean, yes, we can argue that during COVID, some Australians are more equal than others.
I was going to say to
George Orwell would love it.
I was going to say to you, in all your years in the media, we used to speak about the Federation. Yeah? Didn't that mean one nation?
Yes.
And yet the last thing we've been, for the better part of the last year and a half,
we're being very
controversial. 7 separate entities playing our own games, our own fiefdom, our own kings or premiers, and it's been absolutely most instructive to see.
It's been instructive.
As a long-time media guy, I've been absolutely, my eyes have rolled time and time again. What have you made of it?
Well, it's been instructive in a lot of levels, and I think as I said earlier, George Orwell would be having a field day at the moment, but you couldn't write it, could you? No. But he did.
Well, he did.
He did.
Years
ago. But what I would say is that, yes, we are all federated, but what we've seen too is people say and have this notion that we are all one, right? They want that notion. It's like decades and decades ago we had the notion of the tall, bronzed Aussie lifesaver that was our image, when most of us are not up to task.
Go easy.
Not up to task. But what I would say too is that even though we have this wonderful notion that we all are inclusive and we are included and we are all Australian, the reality is when those borders have come down, the people who are disenfranchised are obviously unhappy. So in Victoria's case, we were locked down longer than just about anybody on the planet.
Correct. Those
outside of Victoria were looking in and going, well, what do you complain? We see it's hard, but it's not that bad. And every state that did the hard border, those governments, if we look back, were returned. Correct. And returned easily. So you've got to take it, you've got to sort of look at that and disseminate what that means, or dissect what that means. And what that tells you is that even though people like the notion that we're all one, unless it's a strong federal issue in terms of we will determine that there are no border lockdowns, then we're all one. But otherwise, we're basically a bunch of little islands.
That's why when you were the news director at Channel 7, local news was everything. That's Absolutely. Where you pitched your tent, and you made sure your team understood it, everybody in that station understood it. That's why you rated so well for so long.
We anchored to local issues, because even though we understood, or I understood very clearly the old Marshall McLuhan, that we're all, it's a small world these days.
Yep.
But you can affect some stuff that happens overseas in that sort of idea. But what you can do at local level is you really can affect change. You can really run a media campaign and have an impact.
Meaningful one.
Meaningful one. So sorry, George. Just to finish off that earlier notion, should people be allowed to come back? Definitely, they should be allowed to come back. I mean, otherwise, why be in Australia? Well, if you can't have a safe haven, even though there's risk, we need to look after our own, I think, and we need to look after everybody. And that's part of today. Seeing this imagery, this optic of people being there in a perceptual sense, that's going to give a lot of people who don't have comfort, they will get some comfort. Now, the challenge going forward is we've got to make damn sure that nothing does get out this time, because third time is a charm, third time could break a government.
Absolutely. Steve Carey giving us yet again another idea and more insight about why perception and the optics are so important in everyday news.